Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Amicable Divorce Discussion. My name is Tracy Ann Moore-Grant, and I am the founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. I am joined today by Suzu Solkin. I had the distinct pleasure of meeting her at the AFCC conference in Chicago. We struck up a conversation, and I really enjoyed learning about what she does and what her company does. She works for Sharetek, which is an alcohol and drug testing company. And what is very interesting about what they do is that their testing is DNA based, which for all the professionals out there who are watching it, you will know that this is a very unique type of testing. It really is probably the future of testing. Suzu is the National Director of Sales and Account Management for Sharetek, which is an innovative drug and alcohol testing organization located in Scottsdale, Arizona. She has more than 25 years of experience working in this field, and I'm very glad to have her joining us here today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Suzu. Tell us about this very unique technology and how it works.
So thank you so much for allowing me to be here today to have this conversation with you, Tracy, and I would be happy to do so. So what we do is, as you mentioned, we have a DNA authenticated 100+ panel drug and alcohol test. And I usually like to take a minute for that all to kind of sink in, because it's words that we all understand, but put them together and you're like, huh?
Yeah, it's all the things. I mean, as a family law professional, it checks all the boxes. So
it's all the things. So as we know, drug and alcohol testing, especially in your industry, is imperative in certain situations. It is in behavioral health, there's criminal law, there's many use cases for drug and alcohol testing. Historically, it has been done the same way for years and years and years. And much of it requires observation if you're ever going to truly know who the specimen is being provided by. So in this case, what we do is we authenticate the DNA so that A, observed testing is unnecessary, and B, we have a clear picture of whose sample that is, and actually, as I'll get into, even whether or not the sample is fresh, et cetera, et cetera. So what we do is for the first test, we require a buccal swab collection, so a cheek swab. We pull 16 snips of DNA from that cheek swab collection, and we store them. And then we match that to the DNA in the epithelial cells that we extract from the urine sample the first time that it is submitted. The buccal swab collection is only required once, and that does have to be observed. And again, for your listeners, people say, well, how do I know that that was their buccal swab collection? That does have to be observed. It can be done in person. It can be done via video. It can be done with a mutually acceptable third party. Whomever everybody involved is comfortable with making that observation, they do that. And then that sample is submitted with the first urine collection. It's sent overnight to our lab. These kits can be sent directly to your client's home. They can be sent to counsel's office. They can be sent again to a neutral third party. We will drop ship it wherever is requested. The collections are taken. They're in the kit is included an overnight return shipping bag to UPS. It's already pre-labeled. There's instructions in the kit. It's just like, many of the other people are doing at-home DNA genealogy tests, very similar process. Once it arrives at the lab, within 24 to 72 hours, you have results that are available. And what we do is we verify the DNA, so we know whose sample it is. We look for adulterants, dilutants, various forms of manipulation. We also are testing for more than 100 substances, including metabolites, which allows us much longer look-back windows than if you're just running for the substance themselves. In addition, we do confirmation testing on every sample. So it's not just presumed as to what substance is present. We can tell you exactly what is there, and we give you a reading of the levels as well. And this is all accessible, through a HIPAA protected link. that goes to the donor, that goes to concerned entities, whomever we are instructed to give that link to. And it really gives you a much broader, clearer, more definitive picture of the drug and alcohol use of the person involved. Now, everybody knows about breathalyzer monitoring, and that is, I mean, what a valuable tool that is to have if you need to know in the moment, you know, what somebody's status is. There's no doubt that that has a place, and this is not in place of that. What this is, you know, if somebody is at the point where their drug or alcohol use needs to be monitored for whatever reason, there's an issue at hand that may be broader than alcohol use. It may be more frequent than those, you know, time posts throughout the day where they're using the breathalyzer. If we really need to know whether the kids are safe, because that's what it's all about. This isn't really about determining whether that adult individual is or isn't using. That's a behavioral health issue. But for your listeners, it's really about the safety of the children. So we really could benefit from a broader picture. Mm-hmm. Are they using more than alcohol? I'm a person in long-term recovery. I can tell you from personal experience, if you tell somebody whose addiction issues, whose alcohol use is significant enough that monitoring is necessary. Mm-hmm. If you say you cannot use alcohol between, you know, Friday at this time and Monday morning at this time, the chances that they're not going to turn to another substance to get them through that weekend, to get them through that experience, to help them, if there is an addiction, this is not just a choice. Mm-hmm. So if we really want to keep the kids safe, if we really want this person to be attending to their issues in their entirety, let's look at the whole picture. Let's look at, are they substituting? Let's look at, okay, so they weren't using alcohol Saturday at noon, Saturday at 3 p.m., Sunday at 8 a.m. Were they smoking weed? Were they taking opioids? Were they doing other things to impair themselves that could also put the kids in danger and that also needs to be a part of the picture that's addressed? So that's what our test allows for.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think a lot of times we get mired down in family law that this person is perhaps addicted to this substance or in recovery for this particular issue. And that's the only thing that we're testing for. Whereas, like you're stating, addiction can change and morph and try to get, you know, around the rules and get into the gray area. And so, you know, one huge misconception we have with amicable divorces is many people think that we do not deal with complicated issues such as addiction, and that is false. We deal with a lot of cases that involve addiction because our process is out of court and it's private. And so a lot of parties who have addiction issues do not want that aired in the court system, and they are open to some really creative solutions. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, what I find to be, you know, just really instrumental about what your company offers is the broad range, yeah, the privacy, the flexibility. So you're correct. If we have somebody who is abusing alcohol or who has a history and is in recovery, we do have tools like, for example, SoberLink, that they can hook up to that iPhone and you can see that in real time. But that is only testing for alcohol, and it is only testing at that moment. What you guys are able to offer is sort of global maintenance, you know, sort of to see exactly what's going on here. So the SoberLink would not pick up on exactly what you're talking about, an opioid or marijuana, you know, or other things that somebody, you know,
Kratom,
might be
which
using,
is
you know, and so you might be able to solve that problem at that moment, you know, but this sort of is looking at sobriety maintenance, I would say, you know, and so I think another thing that's just so interesting about it is I've been doing this for 20 years. So I'm very used to the old fashioned, you know, somebody shows up at your house for visitation, the other parent, you think that they are impaired. It was on the burden of the parent to say, you now go get this drug or alcohol test. And when it comes back one way or another, you know, then we'll decide about the visitation, you know, for the children. How cumbersome, you know, and we just have no reason to be having those types of agreements anymore, you know. So, you know, your company, they could get 20 kits shipped to their home. So how does that work with, I guess, scheduling? Something that comes up a lot is that our professionals would be interested in sort of random scheduling for the tests, because we know, again, like you touched on it, addiction will try to work in those gray areas. So how does that work? Do you have a randomizing schedule?
I do. We have a randomizer built into our system where you can put a client on a preferred schedule, whether it be random or fixed, right? So, and you can have a random fixed schedule, but if you know when you want them to be tested, you can select those dates. They don't know, and they will get a text notification that it is their day to submit. You can put them on a true random schedule where twice weekly they'll get a notification and nobody knows when it'll be, and they'll still get that text notification. And, you know, I just want to go back to something that you said in terms of the comprehensive picture. And not only are we looking at 100+ substances, and we're also able to monitor for prescribed substances. So many of your clients have medications that they are prescribed to take and that we need to monitor that they are taking. If it's a psychotropic medication and they're taking that consistently and as prescribed, is part of the understanding and part of the expectation and agreement. Our test will pick that up as well, and we can monitor for that as well. In addition, you know, we're screening for synthetic urine, which people can also submit. And it's a multi-billion-dollar business. It is a thing. I mean,
a lot of that.
You know, you can Whizzinator, Google Whizzinator at your own risk, but it's a thing. And we're looking at also, you know, people will store urine, they'll freeze it, clean urine, and then they'll store it. We can flag that. If they put an additive in it, and there's a lot of products available, you can go on Amazon right now and look up products that you can use to treat a drug or alcohol test, and you can have them delivered to your door by the end of the day. You can walk to your closest head shop and get these items. So we're flagging all of that. So we're really going to be able to take a look at everything that's going on. And if nothing else, it'll expand the conversation, you know. As a clinical social worker, as a licensed mental health professional, there is a lot of research that shows the association and the correlation between, in particular, childhood trauma, but trauma in general, and substance use disorders. And everything that these individuals are going through, and I've been through this myself as a divorced woman, it is traumatic. It is triggering, it is traumatizing, and again, it's all about the children's best interest, but it's important to keep in mind, you know, part of the purpose of our test, it's not just to catch people doing the wrong thing or making a poor choice or, you know, having still demonstrated behaviors that are associated with their addiction. But this is also an opportunity for your clients to demonstrate their sobriety. It's an opportunity, if they're challenged, to be able to say, hey, I am not doing any of the above, and here is an incredibly comprehensive picture where you can see that that is in fact the case. You know, I've spoken to a lot of people in family law who are coming in because they're not doing what they're being accused of. It's not just about monitoring if they are doing it. It's that they really aren't, but for whatever reason, they're still being questioned. And in many cases, when the use of the breathalyzer is the only thing in place, well, what happens is just this. People say, okay, so you weren't, you know, you hadn't consumed alcohol at the 3 touch points throughout the day or whatever the schedule is that you use the breathalyzer, but I suspect that you are using X, Y, or Z.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. let's
Yeah,
look.
I know as a family law professional, I've had many clients come in and say, I'm being accused of this
Yes.
because of my past. I am not doing it. And so one of the first things we do is go to the lab, get a drug test, whatever it is that's appropriate for the circumstances, bring that one back. And of course, that never satisfies people because they would say, well, of course they knew this action was going on. Of course they acted so nice for this period of time to pass this drug test or use the synthetic urine or all these other things that come up. So we could easily say, okay, you're being approached with these, accusations. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get, 10 tests shipped to your home, and we're going to go ahead and just start building a history of sobriety, knowing that this is going to be an accusation, to have that tool for the case, whether it is, obviously a high conflict case or an amicable case where that these issues might come up. It's also so, I think, compelling to the particularly professional clients that we service, as well as so many people travel or have different obligations that they could literally, let's say somebody travels a ton for business, as opposed to saying, oh my gosh, Tuesday I got this alert and I have to find a lab in Idaho. You can say, I brought it with me. It has a prepaid label. I took the test in my hotel room. I found a UPS. I'm done. And it's so much more convenient for people really to be set up for success with drug testing.
Yeah. And, let me speak to that point. Not only can they take it with them, if they leave town and they forget to take it with them, we can overnight and drop ship a kit directly to them. And, when you talk about the convenience, I mentioned the buccal swab collection, but the urine collection is also very simple and very non-invasive. The kit comes with a standard UDS cup and 2 vials. After you do the cheek swab collection in private, whether again, it's on camera or if there's somebody present, or if it's a repeat test, nobody else needs to be involved because it's all, self-contained. They collect their urine sample, and then the vials are actually what we call vacutainers. So there's a needle in the top of the UDS collection cup, and you poke the vial has a rubber stopper, and you poke the needle through the stopper, and it collects the urine on its own. There's no mess, no fuss. You put it in the bag, toss the UDS cup. It can be done in your hotel room. It can be done in a public bathroom. With full discretion and full privacy and full convenience. So I appreciate you bringing up that point.
I think that's really important. One of the hiccups we see with people, really agreeing to, the online testing is work travel, work obligations. They can't leave their day at this office or, for a random test because of their job. They don't want to lose their employment and have to go then wait in a drug testing facility for this. And this takes away all of those arguments against testing. It couldn't be more convenient for somebody to engage in this testing. And so another point, that I know everybody will be interested in is everybody who needs to get the results can. It takes about 3 days. And so if the other parent, other attorney, guardian ad litem, whoever needs to be getting those results, you guys can set that up. It's, pursuant to an agreement who gets those results, and it comes by email, I assume, and you log in and see what the result is there.
Anybody who is designated as a result notification recipient will get a link either via email or to their cell phone via text, whichever they prefer. And they simply need the first name, last name, and date of birth of the client as it was entered in. And clients can be entered under an alias. That's important to mention as well. So, we work with a lot of very high profile individuals. Doesn't matter to us or to the lab what they commit, they can name themselves Mickey Mouse, Walter White, whatever they want.
Probably not Walter White, probably not a good choice here.
Some people like to have a little fun with it. But it doesn't matter to us. We never need to know, which is a valid point to mention, because some people do balk at the notion of DNA, collection. It's important to mention, first of all, this is not forensic DNA. This is 16 SNPs. We cannot tell without knowing who that person is. The lab can't look at those 16 SNPs and say, oh, that's Suzu Solkin's DNA. All we know is, do those 16 SNPs match with these from the urine? That's it. So if you come in as an alias, Nobody on our end ever knows whose sample that is.
Very interesting. So it's the future, right? It
It
seems
is.
like this is absolutely the future of drug testing as we know it. And
but here it is today.
Yeah.
Here it is. It's here. You know, it's funny when you say it's the future. I just had a conversation with one of my kids about the Jetsons and flying cars. I had my hopes hung on that. You know, I'm still waiting, but that we don't have yet. But this it is the future of drug testing, in that I hope that for the sake of dignity and compliance and convenience and comprehensive perspective, I hope that everybody begins to use this strategy for their drug and alcohol testing in conjunction with the breathalyzer, the at-home breathalyzer, because that serves another and yet additional purpose.
Yeah.
If we're truly, you know, concerned about the kids. But yeah, it's the future, but it's here now.
Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us today. I know in my practice and just in getting involved with so many different professionals and organizations and companies, this really has sort of risen to the top as being, you know, something that checks all the boxes. The number of drugs that you test drugs and alcohol, which a lot of testing doesn't do. It's private, it's DNA matching. All the different things that you touched on. So Suzu, thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure that you're probably going to get a lot of feedback from having this discussion with us. And if you're watching and you want to reach out to Suzu, her information is in the description that accompanies this video. And so you can feel free to reach out to her about any questions that you might have about this process and the product and how it can be used. She can answer all of that for you. So thank you very much for tuning in for this edition of our Amicable Divorce Discussions.
Thanks, Tracy.